Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I ask you to do something so simple you may laugh at it. Write the number 777 on a single piece of paper and watch what happens. You have written many things before in fear, in doubt, in despair. But this time you will write as God writes, declaring what already island. And when you do, doors will open where there were no doors. And wealth will rush into your life like a tide. In the next 2 hours, I will reveal why writing 707 on paper is far more than superstition. It is a key to awaken your imagination and to summon wealth as though it were already yours. You will learn how symbols speak directly to the subconscious, why this number holds the vibration of completion and abundance, and how to use it not as a wish, but as a decree. If you have struggled with prayers that faded into silence, if you have begged for money, only to wake poorer than before, this will show you why nothing worked until now. I know your frustration. You have whispered affirmations and nothing changed. You have scribbled lists of desires only to see them gather dust. You have prayed until your lips were dry and still the bills remained. And so you wonder, does any of this work or am I fooling myself? I tell you, you have never been wrong to believe, only wrong in how you applied it. What I give you tonight is not superstition, not chance, but law. When you write 777, you are impressing the subconscious with a symbol that cannot be denied. You are writing a covenant between yourself and God, declaring the end from the beginning. And once you dare to do this, you will never again wonder if prayer works. You will know. Here is what we will uncover together. First, I will show you why the number 777 is the perfect sign of abundance and completion, and why it moves the subconscious with such power. Then I will show you exactly how to write it, not as one hoping, but as one declaring. Next, we will step deeper, exploring how symbols bypass resistance and go straight to the heart of creation. Along the way, I will share stories, proofs, and visions. So, you will see how quickly the world bends when you write from faith. Finally, I will open to you the secret of turning this act into a ritual of power. A nightly practice that not only brings money, but awakens you to the greater truth that imagination itself is God, and you are its living vessel. Here's something most people completely miss. Numbers are not dead marks on a page. They are living symbols, eternal signs that speak a language far deeper than words. You think of them as arithmetic, as tools for counting. But the subconscious does not calculate, it responds. It responds to vibration, to rhythm, to symbol. And when you take a number into yourself with faith, the subconscious receives it as decree. That's why the ancients clothed truth in numbers. Why Scripture is filled with them. Why every page of the Bible is threaded with 7s and 12s and 40s. Numbers bypass the doubting mind and impress the deep. When you write 777 tonight, you are not scribbling digits at random. You are pressing a seal into the wax of your own being. Think of a king who carries a signet ring. When he stamps a document, the wax takes the shape of the seal and holds it forever. The ring is the authority. The wax is the substance. The impression is the law. So it is with you. 777 is the signet. The subconscious is the wax. And the moment you write it with conviction, the seal is set and reality begins to conform. Why does 7 hold such weight? Because in Scripture, 7 is the number of completion. On the 7th day, God rested for the work. Was finished speaks of the end already secured, the circle closed, the desire fulfilled. And when the threefold 7 appears 777, it is perfection magnified abundance in, completion overflowing into every part of life. To write 777 is to declare, it is done. It is finished. I rest. And rest is the shest sign of faith. For if you truly believe, you do not strain. You do not beg. You rest in the finished work, knowing it cannot fail. I remember when I first tested this, I was facing lack, my mind filled with worry. And then I took pen to paper and wrote 777 as though carving it into stone. And as I wrote, something shifted. I felt the burden lift. I felt the assurance that all was already arranged. I cannot explain it with reason, but I knew the seal had been set. Within days, money came from channels I had not foreseen. Was it the numbers themselves? No. It was the law at work. The subconscious answering the symbol carrying the feeling of completion into the deep. So tonight, when you write 777, don't think of it as mathematics. Think of it as covenant. Think of it as decree. Think of it as the whisper of your imagination to God, which is your own deeper self, saying, it is done. And once the deep accepts it, the outer must reflect it. For there is no power in heaven or earth that can break the seal of faith impressed upon the subconscious. And this leads us to the next revelation. Why 777 does not simply mean completion in a vague sense, but why it means wealth. Why it means fullness. Why it means abundance in the very realm you are longing for. To see that, we must look deeper into the nature of 777 as the symbol of prosperity itself. What I'm about to share might seem almost too simple, but it changed everything for me. 777 is not only the number of completion in Scripture. It is the number of fullness, of overflowing supply of wealth itself. Why? Because wealth is nothing more than the visible reflection of inner completeness. Poverty is the confession of lack, of being unfinished, of something missing. Wealth, on the other hand, is the outward echo of an inner state that knows I already have. I already am. I already rest. When you write 777, you are impressing upon the subconscious the pattern of fullness. You are saying, my life is whole. My supply is finished. My abundance is complete. And the outer world, being only the shadow, must take that shape. Think of the seventh day of creation. God did not labor forever, endlessly pushing, endlessly trying. On the seventh day he rested because the work was finished. Creation was complete. To live in 7 is to live in rest, to abide in the finished work. And when you multiply it, when you triple it, 777, you are magnifying that truth until it fills every corner of your being. You are not simply resting in one area of life. You are resting in all. Health, wealth, relationships, freedom, all of it included in the declaration. It is done. That is why writing 777 carries such power. It bypasses the mind that says, I still need, I still lack, I still wait. And it stamps upon the subconscious the symbol of completion, which is always abundance. I recall one who tested this and came back astonished. She was weighed down with debts and could see no way out. I told her to write 777 each night, not as a desperate wish, but as a decree to feel, as she wrote, that the debts were already settled, that her cup already ran over. At first, she felt foolish, but she persisted. Soon unexpected income began to appear, small at first, then larger. Within months, she stood debt-free, and she told me with tears. When I wrote 777, it felt like I was signing God's promise over my life. And that is exactly what she was doing. For the subconscious cannot resist a symbol joined with faith. It must bring forth the thing declared. So when you ask me why does 777 mean wealth, I answer, because wealth is simply the outer reflection of inner completion, and 777 is the perfect sign of that completion repeated until it overflows. Writing it is not superstition, not magic, it is law. It is declaring that the finished work of abundance is already yours, and that declaration, impressed upon the deep, must appear in the visible. Now that you see why 777 carries such power, you must also learn the right way to write it. For many will scribble the numbers idly with no feeling, with no assumption, and then wonder why nothing changes. But if you write in the right state, if you write as a king writes a decree, and not as a beggar writes a plea, then the act becomes living, and the subconscious receives it as truth. And that is where we go next into the secret of writing as decree, not wish. Here's something most people completely miss, and it's the reason they write and see no result. It is not the act of writing that changes the world. It is the state in which you write. Anyone can take a pen and scribble 777 on a piece of paper. But if you write as a beggar, if you write with a thought, I hope this will help me, then you have already declared lack. And the subconscious hears only that lack. The outer world will echo what the subconscious receives. But if you write as one who already possesses, if you put the numbers down with the quiet assurance that it is already done, then the subconscious accepts it as decree, and the decree hardens into fact. Writing becomes powerful only when it is an outward expression of an inward assumption. Think of a king signing his name to a law. When his pen touches the page, he is not hoping the law will be accepted. He is not wondering if his subjects will obey. He signs from authority, knowing that the moment the seal is set, reality must conform. That is how you must write 777. Not as one pleading for a miracle, but as one commanding from completion. When I first did this, I found my hand trembling with old habits of fear. My mind whispered, "What if nothing happens?" But I pushed through and I said within myself, I am not hoping. I am declaring. I am not waiting. I am resting. And as I wrote 777, the trembling ceased and a strange calm overtook me. The calm of one who knows the work is finished. Within days, the world rearranged itself to prove me right. This is why I tell you, do not write quickly. Do not scroll without thought. Take the paper in your hand. Enter into the feeling of completion. And let every stroke of the pen carry the weight of finality. Feel as though you are signing the receipt of a gift already delivered, not placing an order that may or may not come. When you do this, the subconscious receives the numbers as truth, as the very shape of reality, and then the bridge of incidents begins to form. And that bridge will carry you to the manifestation as naturally as sleep carries you into dreams. So I ask you, how are you writing? With doubt, with hope, or with the authority of one who already has? If you find yourself begging on the page, stop. Tear it up. Begin again. Enter the state of wealth, the state of overflow, the state of rest, and then write. For the writing itself is not the cause. It is the evidence of the cause, the outward echo of an inward decree. And if the inward decree is strong, the outer act seals it, and the subconscious cannot resist. Now, once you understand that writing is decree and not wish, you must also see what happens after the decree is made. For when you have written rightly, the subconscious begins its work, arranging people and places and events into what I call the bridge of incidence. And this bridge, though invisible at first, will carry you step by step into the very wealth you declared. That is what we will uncover next. This next part changed everything for me, because it showed me that once the decree is made, once the subconscious is impressed, you do not have to figure out how the wealth will come. The conscious mind wants to plan, to scheme, to calculate, to demand a path it can see. But the law does not work that way. The law is far wiser than your little plans. The subconscious, once it has received the seal, arranges the outer world in what I call the bridge of incidents. A chain of events, each one seeming natural, ordinary, even accidental, but together leading you inevitably to the fulfillment of what you declared. You cannot see the bridge from the beginning. You cannot predict its steps. But as you walk, the planks appear beneath your feet. And when you look back, you marvel at the perfection of the design. I remember when I first tested this, I had declared something in imagination that seemed impossible. The very next day, a trivial encounter took place, something I would have ignored before. But that encounter led to a conversation, which led to an introduction which opened the door to exactly the outcome I had imagined. At the time it seemed like chance, but afterward I saw the bridge. Every step, every meeting, every so-called coincidence was part of the unseen chain of events that the subconscious had woven the moment I set the decree. That is how it always works. You decree, the subconscious builds. Life delivers. Think of a river winding its way to the sea. The river does not argue with the rocks in its path. It does not demand a straight line. It finds the way of least resistance, curving, bending, cutting channels through stone until it reaches the ocean. So it is with the bridge. The subconscious knows the path of least resistance. It may lead you through channels you never considered. It may bend around obstacles you thought permanent. It may use men and women you never imagined would help you. But it always arrives. And when it does, you see that the way was perfect, though you could not have drawn it yourself. This is why I tell you, after you write 777 in faith, let go of the how. Stop tearing at the soil to see if the seed is sprouting. Stop demanding to know the next step. Trust the bridge. Trust that the subconscious, having received the number as decree, is already moving the pieces into place. Your work is not to build the bridge, but to walk it. And to walk it, you must keep the mood of the end, the feeling of wealth, the rest of completion. If you abandon the mood, you leave the bridge. If you persist, the bridge carries you without strain. And when the bridge appears, do not dismiss it as ordinary. Do not say, "This cannot be it. It is too small, too simple." For often the smallest step is the first plank. Follow it, trust it, allow it. And soon you will find yourself standing in the very scene you once declared. That is the faith that rests. That is the patience that inherits the promise. Now, since the bridge is woven of people and events, you must see the next great truth, that everyone you meet is yourself pushed out. They are actors on your stage, playing the parts you have assigned them. And if you wish them to bring wealth to you, you must first see them rightly. That is what we will open next. Here is something that will shock you if you have never heard it before. Every man, every woman you meet, every stranger who crosses your path is yourself pushed out. They are not acting from themselves. They are acting from the role you have given them in imagination. This is why the bridge of incidents works as it does. The subconscious does not conjure wealth from thin air. It moves upon men. It stirs their minds. It shapes their desires. It bends their will in harmony with yours. And they, thinking it is their own thought, step forward to play their part in your drama. When I understood this, I ceased trying to persuade men with arguments, ceased trying to plead with bankers or flatter employers or beg friends for help. I saw at last that if I wanted their behavior to change, I had only to change my assumption, for they were myself pushed out. And when I changed within, they had no choice but to reflect it without. Think of a mirror. You stand before it with a frown, and the reflection frowns instantly. You smile, and it smiles back. Would you ever fight with the reflection? Would you ever plead with it to change while keeping your own face unchanged? No. You know better. The reflection is bound to you. So it is with life. Others cannot do anything to you except what you have imagined them doing. If you see them as enemies, they will oppose you. If you see them as helpers, they will bless you. If you cast them as obstacles, they will stand in your way. If you clothe them in garments of generosity and favor, they will hand you the very thing you desire. They have no power to resist the script you have already written for them in imagination. I recall a student who longed for promotion, but was convinced his manager despised him. He carried within the picture of a stern face, a cold voice, a man determined to hold him back, and year after year the promotion passed him by. Then he learned the law. He began to imagine his manager smiling, congratulating, speaking words of praise. Night after night, he rehearsed this scene until it felt natural. Soon the same manager called him in, commended his work, and offered him the very position he had desired. What changed? Not the manager. He changed himself. He rewrote the role and the actor had to play it. So when you write 777 tonight, see every man as part of the play. Don't let yourself imagine creditors as harsh, employers as unwilling, friends as forgetful. Picture them all as channels of blessing. Hear their voices speaking favor. See their hands extended in generosity. Feel their presence as helpers on your path. For if everyone is you pushed out, then to script them otherwise is to sabotage your own decree. Cast them rightly and they cannot resist. But even as you do this, remember that the root is always within. If you carry an old self-image, if you still see yourself as unworthy, as overlooked, as small, then that self will call forth resistance. No matter how you picture others, to truly free them, you must first free yourself. And that brings us to the deeper work of removing resistance within, stripping off the old man and putting on the new. Here is the hidden root of every obstacle you face. It is never truly in others, never truly in circumstances, never truly in what the world appears to be doing against you. The root of resistance is always in the image you carry of yourself. You may clothe the banker in garments of kindness. You may imagine the employer praising you. You may picture friends remembering you with favor. But if in the depth of your being, you still see yourself as one unworthy of wealth, as one forgotten, as one condemned to struggle, then that image will silently call forth contradiction. For the world cannot give you more than you are willing to give yourself. To hold the old self is to demand its reflection. To put on the new is to free the world, to mirror that new image. Think of Paul's words. Put off the old man which is corrupt, according to deceitful lusts, and put on the new man, which after God is created in righteousness and true holiness. This is not a metaphor to be admired. It is a method to be practiced. The old man is every memory of lack, every story of failure, every whisper of unworthiness until it became second nature. That old man will always sabotage your 777. No matter how many times you write it, if you do not strip him away, but the new man is waiting. And the moment you dare to assume him, he is yours. The new man is the self who already dwells in abundance. The self who lives in the psalm as truth. The self who walks through the world, knowing that favor follows him, that wealth flows to him, that nothing is withheld from him. I once counseled a woman who could never seem to receive kindness from others. She told me, I try to see them favoring me, but they still forget me, they still pass me by. When I asked her how she saw herself, her answer betrayed her. She felt invisible, unworthy, unlowly. That was the root. I told her to stop worrying about how others appeared, and to go into imagination each night seeing herself radiant, favored, sought after. She persisted, and soon she could not walk into a room without others turning toward her. Invitations came, opportunities multiplied, doors opened. What changed? Only her image of self. The outer world was compelled to follow. So when you write 777, remember, you are not only declaring a number, you are declaring an identity. You are saying, I am the one whose life is complete. I am the one whose cup runs over. I am the one who lacks nothing. That is the new man. And once you accept him, the old falls away. Others fall into line. Circumstances shift. Wealth flows without resistance because the root has been healed. This is the true forgiveness of sin. For sin is only to miss the mark, to fall short of your ideal. And forgiveness is not pleading with God in heaven. It is identifying with your ideal here and now. It is saying, though I once saw myself as poor, I now see myself as rich. Though I once saw myself as forgotten, I now see myself as chosen. And the moment you do, the world must follow. And now that we have removed the inner resistance, we must face the greater discipline, to remain in this state, to dwell in it, to live in it, until it becomes natural. For it is not the momentary act of writing that brings wealth, but the abiding state that holds it. This is the secret of dwelling in the end, and it is where we must go next. To dwell in the end is to take up permanent residence in the state of your fulfilled desire, to make it your home, rather than a hotel you visit for a moment and then abandon at the first sign of trouble. Most men dabble in imagination as though it were a passing fancy. They visit the end, they taste its sweetness, but then they quickly retreat into the familiar bitterness of lack when appearances shout against them. But the law does not respond to dabbling. It responds to abiding. Just as a seed cannot sprout if it is pulled up every day to be inspected, so the assumption cannot ripen if you continually leave it to return to the old state. To dwell is to remain unmoved. To rest in the psalm is fact, to say it is done. It is finished, it is mine, and to refuse every temptation to contradict it. Think of moving into a new home. On the first night, it may feel strange. The walls are unfamiliar. The rooms echo differently. You still think of the old place where you once lived. But you do not run house just because the new one feels unusual. You stay. You unpack. You furnish. You abide. And soon what was once strange becomes familiar. What was once foreign becomes natural. So it is with dwelling in the end. At first, it may feel like pretending to say, I am wealthy. I am supplied. My cup runs over. The old self will call you back. The world will whisper that nothing has changed. But if you remain, if you keep sleeping in the new house of assumption, then soon it becomes home, and the old house of lack crumbles away, like a forgotten ruin. This is why doubt is so destructive. Doubt is nothing more than moving out of the new house and back into the old. Each time you say, but where is the money? But why hasn't it come? You pack your bags and return to the house of poverty. And then you wonder why the new house never feels like home. Faith is simply staying put. Faith is remaining in the new state, even when the outer world denies it, even when the senses mock it. Faith is stubborn dwelling. And that dwelling is the proof that the harvest must come. For if you remain, the world cannot do otherwise than reflect your state. I remember a man who imagined himself promoted, who lived night and day in that assumption, walking, speaking, acting as though it were already true. Weeks passed, then months, and the outer gave no sign. Others told him to give up, to be realistic, to stop dreaming. But he refused. He dwelt. He abutted. He would not move. And one day the letter came. The call was made, and he was lifted into the very position he had assumed. He looked back and laughed. For the world had only been slow to catch up, but it could not resist forever. Dwelling had done its work. So I say to you, when you write 777, do not make it a one-night act, and then throw it aside. Make it your dwelling. Each time you see the number, let it remind you that you already live in completion. Each time doubt calls, let the number answer. It is finished. Each time the old state beckons, let the number anchor you in the new. Dwell there until it is natural, until it is home, until it is the only reality you know. And if you ask, but how long must I dwell? How long until it shows? Then you reveal that you have not yet understood the law of time. For every seed has its appointed hour, and to demand immediacy is to confess unbelief. To rest patiently is to prove faith. And so the next truth we must open is the mystery of time bridges and patience, and how the law always fulfills itself at the perfect moment. Patience is the test that few are willing to endure. And yet it is the very sign that the decree has been accepted. For when you truly believe, you rest, and rest is nothing but patience. Look at the seed in the soil. The moment it is planted, the life within it begins to stir. Though the farmer sees nothing, though the earth appears barren, though days pass with no sign, he does not despair. He knows the law of growth. He knows that beneath the soil invisible to the eye, the miracle is already underway. He waters, he waits, he trusts, and in due season, the stalk breaks through. So it is with your decree. The instant you wrote 777 with conviction, the seed was planted. The law was set in motion. The bridge of incidents began to weave. But because your eyes cannot yet see it, you are tempted to doubt, to say, it is not working. And in that doubt, you dig up the seed, uproot the work, and then wonder why nothing grows. I remember a man who tested this law with the ladder exercise. He imagined climbing a ladder, feeling the rungs beneath his hands, the weight of his body as he rose. Night after night, he persisted, and then he let it go. Within days, without his planning, he found himself compelled to climb a ladder in waking life. The seed had sprouted, the bridge had formed, and the act became fact. If such a trivial thing can appear so faithfully, how much more the weightier matters of wealth and freedom. The law does not measure large or small. It answers with equal ease, for creation is already finished, and you are only selecting which part of it you will occupy. Time then is not your enemy. Time is the servant of the law. Time is the interval between planting and harvest, between decree and manifestation. To demand immediacy is to confess you do not trust the seed. To rest in patience is to confess you know it cannot fail. Faith is not straining, not forcing, not begging. Faith is quiet endurance, the willingness to remain in the end until the outer reflects it. And I promise you the outer must reflect it. For no assumption persisted in can fail to harden into fact. So when you write 777, and the days pass with no sign, do not let your heart tremble. Do not tear up the paper and declare it nonsense. Do not run back to the old state in despair. Instead, say within yourself, the seed is planted. The harvest is sure. My work is to wait. And wait not in sorrow, but in joy. Wait as a woman with child waits, knowing the birth will come in its time. Wait as the farmer waits, knowing the rain will fall, the stalk will rise, the field will blossom. That is patience. That is faith. That is rest. Yet even as you wait, you are not powerless. For there is a deeper practice given to you, a way to hasten the unfolding by removing the weeds of the past. For many are still haunted by old memories, by debts unpaid, by failures rehearsed, by scenes that rise unbidden to mock the new state. But you have been given the book's shears of revision, the power to rewrite the past until it sings in harmony with your decree. And when you wield this power, the subconscious is cleansed, the soil made pure, and the harvest flows swifter. This is the art of revision, and it is the next secret we must uncover together. Revision is the hidden key that turns even your yesterdays into servants of your desire. Most people believe the past is fixed, carved in stone forever beyond their reach. And because they hold that belief, they continue to drag the dead weight of old memories into the present. They replay scenes of failure. They rehearse the sting of rejection. They dwell upon debts unpaid and chances lost. And each time they recall them, they breathe new life into what should have died. The subconscious does not know the difference between what was and what island. It knows only what is impressed upon it now. So when you relive the past in sorrow, you are planting fresh seeds of sorrow in the present, and the harvest will match. But the moment you learn that imagination rules not only tomorrow but yesterday, you hold in your hand the shears of revision, and with them you may cut away every barren branch and graft in its place the fruit of abundance. I recall a man crushed beneath the weight of debt. Each time he saw his creditors in imagination, he heard their stern voices, saw their frowning faces, felt the shame of owing more than he could pay. That was the prayer he offered night and day. And of course, the debt deepened. I told him, go back in imagination and hear something new. When you recall those men, do not see them demanding. See them smiling. Hear them saying, it is settled. It is paid. All is well. He owed after night. He replayed the old scenes, but with a different ending. Soon he could no longer recall the frowns, only the smiles. He no longer felt the shame, only the relief. And then, in ways he could not have planned, the debts were lifted. Some forgiven outright, others paid through unexpected supply. What had changed? Only his memory. And when the memory changed, the present followed. So I say to you, Take every scene of lack, every story of loss, and rewrite it tonight. When you remember the time you were denied, change it to the time you were accepted. When you recall the moment you failed, change it to the moment you triumph. When you think of bills piling on your table, see them already stamped, paid in full. Do not leave the memory as it was. Leave it as you desire it to be. And when you persist, the subconscious accepts the revision as fact, and the outer world bends to match it. For the subconscious is timeless. It does not distinguish between a memory revised and an event lived. It knows only what it is told, and it obeys. This is the pruning shears of imagination. This is how you clear the soil while you wait. And when you combine revision with the decree of 777, you hasten the harvest. For there is no longer any contradiction in the deep. The old weeds are cut away. The new shoots take their place, and the field blossoms with the wealth you declared. And when you prove this, when you see debts vanish, doors open, opportunities flow, you will realize something greater still. That money was never the true treasure. It was only the shadow pointing to the substance. The greater promise hidden in 777 is not coins, not bills, not bank accounts, but the revelation of your true nature that the I am within you is God Himself. And to that supreme revelation, we now must turn. Now we come to the crown of the whole mystery, the truth that makes every lesser gift look like dust in the sunlight. For though writing 777 will bring money, though it will cancel debts, though it will open doors and fill your table with bread, all these are but shadows, signs pointing to the greater wealth that lies within you. The true prize is not the coins in your hand, but the awakening of God within your being. This is the promise that has been hidden from the ages. Christ in you, the hope of glory. When you write 777 with faith, you are not only declaring the completion of your outer desire, you are also aligning yourself with the eternal pattern of perfection. The number of God's finished work, the symbol of your own divine identity. I have lived to see this promise fulfilled. I have stood in visions where the veil was torn away, where the petty chase for money was swallowed up in the revelation of my true nature. In that hour, I knew beyond question that imagination itself is God, that the I am speaking within me is the Eternal One, that I and the Father are one. And in that knowledge all fear of lack vanished. For how can the source of all ever be poor? How can the fountain ever thirst? How can the light ever be darkened? From that day forward, I could never again tremble before a bill, never again bow before the illusion of want. For I knew myself as the shepherd of the psalm, the one who says, I shall not want because I have the very abundance that fills the world. Think of it like this. A man spends his life chasing coins, bending low, scrambling after scraps, until one day the sun rises, and he sees he is standing in a field of gold that stretches without end. Will he still bend for the coins? No. He will laugh, he will weep, he will rejoice, for he has found the source. So it is when the promise awakens in you, the money flows without strain. The opportunities abound, but you do not cling to them, for you have touched the eternal. You know now that all outer things are only the reflections of your inner being, and the being within you is God. So when you write 777 tonight, let it bring you wealth, but do not stop there. Let it lead you to the deeper truth, that you are not a creature begging favors from heaven, but the Creator declaring heaven into being. Let it remind you that your imagination is not a tool you sometimes use, but the very essence of who you are. And when that dawn upon you, you will live free, for you will know that all things are already yours. The riches of earth and the riches of heaven are one treasure, and that treasure is you. And now as we close, let us gather the threads of all we have seen. The symbol, the decree, the bridge, the mirrors, the dwelling, the revision, and the promise, and weave them into one final word. So you may leave this night not only with knowledge, but with a challenge to live it and to prove it in your own world. You have walked with me through this entire journey. And now we stand at the place where it all gathers into one. Tonight you have seen that 777 is not superstition, not a lucky charm, not a game of chance. It is a symbol of divine completion. The echo of the seventh day, when all creation was finished and God rested, declaring the work complete. When you write it, you are pressing that symbol into the wax of your subconscious, declaring, "It is done. It is finished. It is mine." You have learned that to write rightly is not to scribble in hope, but to decree in faith. To sign your name as a king signs a law, knowing the moment the seal is set, reality must conform. You have seen how the bridge of incidents begins to weave itself. The moment you assume how men and women, strangers and friends, play their parts in perfect harmony, carrying you step by step into the scene you already chose. You have discovered that everyone you meet is yourself pushed out. That to see them rightly is to free them to bless you. That to hold the old image of self is to bind yourself to lack. But to put on the new man is to unlock the flow of wealth and favor. You have seen the discipline of dwelling in the end, of refusing to move out of the new house. Once you have entered, of remaining in the mood of the wish fulfilled until it becomes home. You have learned the patience that trusts the seed, the faith that rests until the harvest appears, knowing it cannot fail. You have taken up the shears of revision, rewriting your past until it sings in harmony with your desire, cleansing the subconscious of old weeds, so the new shoots may grow unhindered. And finally, you have glimpsed the crown of it all, the promise beyond money. The revelation that imagination itself is God, and that you are the one declaring reality into being. This is the field of gold in which you stand, the eternal treasure from which every outer coin is only a spark. So I leave you with this charge tonight. Take a single piece of paper, write upon it 777, and do not write as a beggar hoping to be fed, but as God declaring the finished work. Place it by your bed. Look upon it, and feel the rest of completion. Say within yourself, "It is done." Then watch with patience and with joy as the bridge of incidents forms, as others play their parts, as wealth flows in ways you could never have planned. And when it happens, and it will happen, do not stop at the money. Lift your eyes higher, and remember this was never about numbers on a page. It was about the God within you awakening to his own power. And if you have felt even a spark of that power tonight, then you are ready for the next unveiling. There is a prayer greater than any number, greater than any psalm, a prayer that never fails. In my next teaching, I will take you into that secret chamber and show you how to speak it, how to live it, and how to command reality itself. So click here and walk with me into the prayer that never fails. Thank you.